So the Prime Minister is en route to the United States of America. There will be a series of very crucial meetings, including a bilateral summit with US President Joe Biden, the first in-person Quad summit with Prime Ministers of Japan and Australia and the President of the United States of America. And then on the 25th, the Prime Minister will address the United Nations General Assembly. This is the Prime Minister's 7th visit to the United States of America, and perhaps one of the most significant, given the rapidly developing and changing dynamic situation both in Afghanistan and the Indo-Pacific. Geeta Mohan reports.
The stage is set for Namaste America. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 3-day visit to the United States is significant on many counts.
ये जो दृश्य है, ये अकल्पनीय है.
He will be attending the first in-person meeting of the Quad leaders.
Now, Prime Minister Modi, I'm kicking it over to you. And again, it's great to see you.
His biggest foreign trip since the COVID pandemic will also be his first to the US after President Joe Biden took charge. Prime Minister Modi has a packed itinerary in the US. He reaches Washington, D.C. late night on Wednesday. The next morning, he will meet Apple chief Tim Cook. But the highlight of the day would be his meeting with Vice President Kamala Harris.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, solemnly swear
that I will support.
Remember, Prime Minister Modi had congratulated Harris on becoming the first woman US Vice President, calling her election a historic occasion.
Foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Modi will be holding bilateral meets with its Australian and Japanese counterparts, Scott Morrison and Yoshihide Suga, and the trio will be hosted by Biden for a dinner. On Friday, Modi and Biden will hold a bilateral meet at the White House.
One of the highlights of the visit is the Prime Minister's meeting with the US President, President Joe Biden in the White House. You are undoubtedly aware that this would be the Prime Minister's first in-person meeting with President Biden.
Both the leaders have met thrice virtually. The Quad Summit in March, the Climate Change Summit in April, and the G7 Summit this year. Prime Minister Modi will then be attending the Quad Leaders Summit at the White House. The grouping of 4, the United States, India, Australia and Japan, is designed as a counter to China in a bid to secure the Asia-Pacific region.
We'll do so with our allies and partners through cooperation at multilateral institutions like the United Nations to amplify our collective strength and speed our progress toward dealing with these global challenges.
After a series of hectic meetings, Prime Minister Modi will travel to New York to address the UN General Assembly on Saturday. The key focus will be the situation in Afghanistan and Pakistan's continuous patronage to terrorism. Prime Minister Modi has already spelt out India's stand on the new Taliban administration at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit last week.
अफगानिस्तान में सत्ता परिवर्तन इंक्लूसिव नहीं है और बिना नेगोशिएशन के हुआ है. इससे नई व्यवस्था की स्वीकार्यता पर सवाल उठते हैं.
The meetings on the highest global stage signal a new world order. US President Joe Biden has announced an end to relentless wars and a beginning of relentless diplomacy. Emerging from a COVID pandemic, the biggest humanitarian crisis in 100 years, the world has new challenges ahead. With Geeta Mohan, Bureau Report, India Today.
Of the most diverse and welcoming city in the United States.
And India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan now joins me from Washington, D.C. for more on the story. Geeta, extremely crucial, whether it's COVID, climate change, energy requirements, situation in Afghanistan or the Indo-Pacific. This is an extremely crucial visit, the Prime Minister's 7th to the United States.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be landing in Washington, D.C. this evening around 6:30 p.m. and the most important aspect of his visit is going to be the quadrilateral meeting that is to take place in Washington, D.C. President Biden is going to host the leadership as also have separate bilateral meetings. So for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, it is not just going to be the quadrilateral but also the bilateral meetings that are going to take place with Biden, Scott Morrison and Suga. The significance of all the meetings are going to be on how to ensure that they come together to not just contain the aggressive posturing by China, but also speak on the COVID cooperation that they've seen in the recent past, defense military alliances. Remember, US, Australia and UK have formed a military alliance called AUKUS. That certainly the Indian side says is not going to impact Quad. We'll have to see how that really works out, but it is going to be significant to see how Afghanistan is discussed. There is a lot of conversation on whether if Taliban government should be accorded recognition or not. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the first to call out the Taliban administration in saying they're not inclusive. So that certainly is also going to be focused. That's one important leg of his visit in DC. But because it's after a long time, he's also connecting with the business community in Washington DC. There are going to be important meetings with the top CEOs of US, and there is a meeting slated with Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll have to wait and see whether if human rights issues really come up in that meeting as well or not. Okay. Apart from that, he's also, the community connect is always going to be there, so expect the Indian community to be outside Hotel Willard, which is where Prime Minister is going to stay, to really welcome the Prime Minister.
So while a lot of focus remains on climate change or on Afghanistan or Indo-Pacific or AUKUS, remember a very important aspect of this visit also remains business, startups and trade ties. And